Teas, and I'm very happy to be here with you all. Very happy indeed. It's very nice. And today we're celebrating, we're observing Lord Varaha's appearance day. And so we'll go through that pastime of the appearance of Lord Varaha and his saving the earth and his killing the demon Hiranyaksha. So it's the appearance day of the Lord. It's very auspicious, extremely auspicious. We have special access to the Lord when it's one of his appearance days, or the great devotees also appearance or disappearance days in the cases of the great devotees. Yes, so today's very auspicious, and actually it's doubly auspicious because not only is it the appearance day of Lord Varaha, but devotees, it is the disappearance day of Hiranyaksha. So that's very auspicious, extremely auspicious. And this whole pastime is extensively described in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with chapter 13. And then the background is given, how these things came to be, why, and all that. We'll go through these things. But then finally, the last chapter, which is dealing with Lord Varaha and his pastimes, is chapter 19. So 13 to 19. What's that? 7 chapters dealing with this pastime. So we can understand it's very important. And we will begin today. Some might be a little surprised to hear that. We will begin at the end. Because at the end of chapter 19, in fact the last 2 verses, 37 and 38, they are like palastuti. If you understand what I mean by that. This term palastuti, phala of course means fruit, and stuti means a prayer. So palastuti means, it's a term used frequently throughout the Vedic literatures and like literatures to do with Lord Chaitanya and so on. Generally speaking, or often, when there's some important narration, just extensive. So that is applied here also. 3rd canto, chapter 19, verses 37 and 38. They're giving blessings. They're giving blessings to those who hear and chant. Brahmana, Srinoti Gayat Yanamodite Jasa, Vimuchite Brahma, Vedad Api Dvija. Which means, O Brahmins, that's all it's given. O Brahmins, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as the firstborn in order to deliver the world. So anyone who hears and chants about this is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmin. So who knows what we've done in the past? I mean, even in this lifetime, ignorance is so powerful, we may forget so many things. But what to speak of that? How about so many lifetimes in this material world? What we have done devotees we've all done. Oh, Krishna, Krishna. Actually, Prabhupada, one time, in a letter, he described the devotee who had written the letter to him, which Prabhupada was replying to, obviously asked Prabhupada, why is it, if Krishna's supplying remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, why is it that we can't remember our previous lifetime, usually, or, so many, however many, maybe millions of previous lifetimes, or more than millions? Why is that? And Prabhupada, there at least, described that this is the mercy of the Lord, because we have been through so much horror, being destroyed in so many ways, in so many lifetimes. And we've done so many shocking things that if we remember it all, we won't be able to deal with it. Just like, people who have been in wars, sometimes they get exposed to people getting blown up and all this sort of very drastic stuff. And so then at the end, after the war, when they go home, they're traumatized for years, maybe their entire life. So if we were able to remember how many hundreds and thousands and millions and more lifetimes full of shocking things as animals, lower species, etc., we wouldn't be able to manage. And we would just mentally the mind would just be destroyed, more or less. Right. So anyway, let's go on here, verse 38. Etan maha punyam alam pavitram danyam yashasyam padam ayur ashisham pranendriyanam yudhisorya vardhanam narayanamite gatir angashrivata. This most sacred narrative confers extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and all the objects of one's desire. On the field of battle, it promotes the strength of one's vital organs and organs of action. One who listens to it at the last moment of his life is transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord, O dear Shonika. So this is fairly typical of Phalastutis. They give that sort of benediction, and as you noticed, I imagine, in this particular verse, there's not just transcendental benediction given that if you listen to it at the end of your life, you go to the abode of the Lord, but there are also material benedictions that you would get great punya, and you get wealth, you become famous, longevity, you could live long time, many years, more than people would expect, and you get all the objects of your desires. This is, all the objects of your desires. If you're desiring to become a pure devotee, that's one thing. But if you're desiring to become the king of New Town, you might do that. You may well do that. Impossible, Prabhupada said, is a word in a fool's dictionary. So there's no limit. So, okay, there you go, devotees. That's just by way of introduction. Better to tell you before go through the whole pastime, rather than afterwards, because this comes at the end. Because if you were thinking, if you're looking at your watch, how long is he going to go on for? And what's going to be for prasadam and all these popular thoughts? Then, you might not listen to it very well. And at the end, if we tell you that, there's so much benefit in hearing it, well, it might be too late for you. So we have told you in advance. So like I said, it all begins in chapter 13. Chapter 13, the way the whole narration is structured in the Bhagavatam is interesting in that this chapter 13, we will not go through it in detail because it is the very subject is expanded on as we go through some of the other chapters. But basically what it is, it's a brief analysis of the whole event, everything that happened. It's you could say it's a summary of the whole pastime. The only thing which is not really addressed elsewhere is that somewhere in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada refers to Srila Jiva Goswami, who makes the point that actually in these chapters, it is a combined narration of two appearances of the Lord. The appearance of the Lord, anyway, at one time, and then the appearance of the Lord at another time. I just slipped my mind. Shweta Varaha and what did you say? Rakta Varaha. Yeah. So, but they're just being sort of interwoven in together. It's not like he says, well, at this appearance of Lord Varaha, he did this, but then at the other one, he did something else. It's just it's like one. It's like one. So, anyway, that's fine. That's the, the prerogative, you could say, of Shukadeva Goswami. Can present these things in different ways, slightly different ways. But that was not mentioned, as I recall, in the following chapters, which are going into more detail about everything. Because, actually it's referred to chapter 13, verse 16. Prabhupada says, according to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topics are of the Shweta Varaha millennium, and topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter and in the whole narration. So what we're going to really look at, well actually, there's something else too. The appearance of Lord Varaha is discussed here in this 13th chapter, from verse 18 to verse 28. That devotees, well, the scene is the Earth planet is in the water of the Ganga Ocean at this point. Yes. And Manu, who is Vidura, Vidura is inquiring inquiring, what happened? How did the Earth planet end up in the Garbhadak Ocean? And what happened after that? It must have been saved because the Dura is thinking, we are on the Earth planet right now when he's speaking, and it is not in the Garbhadak Ocean, so someone must have saved it. What happened? So Lord Brahma, Maitreya, the Dura is speaking to Maitreya, and Maitreya refers to a discussion of Lord Brahma with Swayambhuva Manu. And Brahma, seeing the situation of the Earth planet at that time in the water of the Garbhadak Ocean, Lord Brahma was thinking. Actually, the Bhagavatam just says he was thinking. Maybe he was thinking about what should we do, what could be done. But he was thinking about the situation. And while he was thinking, a small boar came out of one of his nostrils, out of his nose. And the measurement of the creature was not more than the upper portion of the thumb, at least relative to Lord Brahma. Yeah. So, tiny little creature, not, some gigantic creature. So then the boar, Lord Varaha, came out of the nose, situated himself in the sky, and then started to become bigger. First, he's no bigger than the tip of the thumb. Within a moment, he was as large as a stone. Of course, there are stones and there are stones. Not all stones are the same size, but obviously means quite big. And Lord Brahma's watching this, and he's wondering, what is this that has come from my nose? So then, as he's thinking, and now Lord Varaha has become very big, then Lord Varaha roared tumultuously like a great mountain. In the purport, that's verse 23, and the purport, Prabhupada says, mountains are also living entities and can roar. Shri Shri Gauri Tai Ki Jai Shri Varahadev Ki Jai. He roared like a great mountain, and Brahma and the other devotees and personalities on the scene, they were all very excited like that. And it's a little bit like the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you could say, to some degree, or second chapter of first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, introducing the whole subject. Yeah. So then he went into the water and picked up the earth on his tusks. And then now he has to deal with Hiranyaksha, who is the one responsible for the earth being in the water. So what he did, it's interesting, he put the earth down on the water. But now the earth did not sink into the water. Before, it was in the water. Now it is on the water, because the planet has been empowered by the touch of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Brahma and the demigods and the great devotees and people present, they glorify the Lord in different ways. And then we go on to the next chapter, which is chapter 14. And now, what's going to be happening now is that the background to the whole story, and actually, as it turns out, it's the background not just to this story of Lord Varaha and Hiranyaksha, but it's also the background to the story of Lord Nrsimhadev and Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu. So the point is, how did this Hiranyaksha, and in this case Hiranyaksha, how did he take birth? Because this is, what to speak of Satya Yuga. This is just the beginning of Satya Yuga. By the end of Satya Yuga, there's some little deterioration has occurred, but this is right at the beginning. So already Lord Brahma has described these things, as we mentioned, to Vidura. So at the beginning of chapter 14, Vidura says, "Can you please tell me more?" This is very, very interesting. Extremely interesting. Yeah. He says, Vidura says, "I've heard about this, the killing of Hiranyaksha. From authorities, I've heard about it, but I don't really know so much detail. What was the reason for their fighting and things like this?" And so, then Maitreya, one has to, as one's reading through the Bhagavatam, follow the narrations. Because it's not just Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya. It's not just Shukadev Goswami, but it's plenty of people. In this case, it's Vidura who's inquiring, and Maitreya who's answering. So, Kashyapa and Aditi gave birth to all the demigods, or so many of the demigods. Kashyapa and Diti gave birth to many demons. He's kind of on the impersonal side, Vedas, but he's not a pure devotee. And therefore, Kashyapa gets caught here in a very bad situation, actually extremely bad situation, by not being able to assert himself as a husband with his wife. That's a very important subject for householders or those who may become householders. But that's what happens here, is that Diti is one of how many? I think 13 daughters of Manu, Daksha, and they were all given to Kashyapa to become his wives. And at this particular point in time, they've all got children, except her. She's the only one. She doesn't have any children. And she feels very bad, like you could say, very embarrassed. Yes, so now she's appealing to Kashyapa that you must give me a child. Yes. But the first problem was, it was an inauspicious time. It was just at the time the sun is just setting, or is just set. So it's like a half light. And at that time, Lord Shiva and his associates through the sky looking for people who are trying to conceive a child or just engage in sex life at that time. And Lord Shiva is in charge in certain respects. He's in charge of these types of people like the ghosts and ghouls and pishachas and hobgoblins, we say in English, and pishachas, suitable term, right? Like super rakshasas, not just ordinary rakshasas, but all these very inauspicious people. So he places them in the wombs of the women who are engaged in sex life at that time. Yeah. And therefore they have bad children. Like today, there's so many bad children. It's incredible, actually. It's beyond incredible, it's just inconceivable. Yes, right. So, therefore, Diti expresses herself to her husband that you must show me your mercy, you must be merciful by giving me a child. Because, all my other co-wives have, I don't. I'm trying, I'm serving you as nicely as them, so why not? And a woman is honored in the world by this benediction of her husband. Yes. So, like this, she goes on, and Kasyapa should have said, if he was Krishna conscious enough or just strong enough, even in an impersonal way, he should have just said, listen, this is not the time. Don't worry. When the time is right, which will only be in a few days, just a few days, just be patient, and we will do it all properly, and you're going to have very nice children who will glorify you. So that our Kashyapa, unfortunately, another point, Diti doesn't just want to have a child, she actually also wants to just engage in sex life. It's not just, let me have a child and that's all there is to it. But she does want to engage in sex life. So Kasyapa, being sort of like a hen-pecked husband, as they say, who'll do whatever his wife says, he agrees. And in agreeing, he says some kind of silly things, which, there's some truth to, but he's giving them far more emphasis than he should. For example, verse 17 in chapter 14. O afflicted one, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you, for who else but you is the source of the three perfections of liberation? Well, the wife is meant to help, and a good wife will definitely help with religious practice, and the husband's performing austerities. As one can cross over the ocean with seagoing vessels, one can cross the dangerous situation of the material ocean by living with a wife. So, this is verse 20. As a fort commander very easily conquers invading plunderers, by taking shelter of a wife, one can conquer the senses, which are unconquerable in the other social orders. So without going into it in too much detail, basically Prabhupada, towards the end of her speaking and him speaking, Prabhupada says, either he's joking, or he's actually bewildered. Yeah. But it appears more he's actually bewildered. And so he actually tries to get her to hold on by explaining, look, this is not a good time. Lord Shiva is passing along trying to find, impious wounds to place demons in. Let's just wait a little while. But Diti can't wait, she just grabs him. And that's that. So that happens, and then just immediately after, it's interesting, immediately after Diti expresses regret, remorse, like, I should have done that. But she has, it's already happened, it's too late. And she asks Lord Shiva's your brother, could you speak to him? Put in a good word, so we don't get, some really terrible people as children. But then Kashyapa, immediately, he explains what's going to happen. Immediately. He's just so knowledgeable and so in tune. He explains, actually you're going to give birth to 2 children, 2 boys. You will have 2 contemptuous sons, born of your condemned womb. They will cause constant lamentation to all the 3 worlds. And they'll kill faultless people, torture women, and so on and so forth. But then, later, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will kill them. Both. Yeah. So, and Diti in verse 42 is very interesting. She says, it's very good that my sons will be magnanimously killed by the arms of the Personality of Godhead with his Sudarshan weapon. O my husband, may they never be killed by the wrath, the anger of the Brahmin devotees. That would be worse than being killed by the Lord. The result of being killed by the anger of devotees is far worse than being killed by the Lord. Being killed by the Lord is auspicious. Yeah. So, yeah. A person is condemned by a Brahmin or a Vaishnava, or is always fearful to other living entities, is never favored either by those who are already in hell or by those in the species in which he's born. So it's, it's a problematic situation, seriously problematic. But then Kashyapa says, that's the bad news, or the good news, or whatever. That's the news. Here's some good news, though. The son of one of your sons will be a great devotee, will be Prahlad. Prahlad Maharaj. So Diti, at the end of the chapter, Diti is in a sort of relatively positive type of mood, at least under the circumstances. So we go on to chapter 15. Yes. So, next thing that happens is that Diti, understanding that it's going to be bad, it's going to be extremely bad, she delays giving birth for 100 years. To time. Sometimes, a devotee tells us, well, my wife's expecting a child. It's going to be around Janmashtami. And sometimes they say, well, why didn't you just, hold on or do whatever's necessary so the child is born on Janmashtami? And they say, well, we'll see what we can do, but we are not able to do that. But Diti, because she's not an ordinary person, despite her shortcomings, but she was able to hang on for 100 years. And during the course of her pregnancy, the children are not born yet, but during the course of her pregnancy, the whole universe was affected. The light of the sun, the light of the moon was reduced for all planets. Not like lost completely, not darkness, but it was impaired, is the word Prabhupada uses. And so the demigods come and ask Lord Brahma, what's going on here? And Lord Brahma explains to them, and yes, so the story now is given. The story is given. How did these two demons appear? So Lord Brahma explains, Lord Brahma explains about Jaya and Vijaya. And I think you all know the story of Jaya and Vijaya, the four Kumars, don't you? I would imagine you do. It's such a well-known story. So they were the two sons of Diti. And Hiranyaksha was the one who came out first. And Hiranyakashipu came out second from the womb. And Prabhupada explains there, this is what happens when they're twins. It means two eggs are fertilized, but the one fertilized first, means is the oldest, is now further up inside the womb, and the second fertilized one is in front. So the second fertilized, the younger one in that sense, comes out first. So Hiranyaksha came out first, but he's the younger of the two, the younger brother of Hiranyakashipu. Anyway, we won't go through all these details here. If we had time, we could actually do a seminar on this. It's very interesting. And there's so many interesting points that come up, at different places. We're sort of skipping through here. But the Lord, the four Kumars are trying to enter Vaikuntha. Jaya and Vijaya stopped them in a kind of very abrupt way, kind of like a rude way, like, where do you think you're going, children? Not in a respectful way. So they really get angry and they curse Jaya and Vijaya. Actually, they curse them, just go to the material world and goodbye. Not for this number of lives or that number of lives. Just go to the material world and stay there. Because that's what people with mentalities like you, that's the place where you belong. But then the Lord comes along. And one thing that happens is the four Kumars smell the tulsi on his lotus feet, and their minds become purified, and they become pure devotees on the spot. Up to now, they're in a kind of mixed position. They're actually Brahmavadis, but Narada Muni had explained to them about the Supreme Lord, and they should really go and see the Lord, and told them, well, he's in Vaikuntha, so they went there. And they're not in Vaikuntha yet. They haven't entered. They're just outside because they were stopped by giant Vijay. But now, when the Lord comes, they're pure devotees. So the Lord glorifies them and chastises giant Vijay for cursing them really heavily. Yeah, and glorifies them that you're so great. And the Brahmins are just so wonderful. And just an interesting side point, Srila Jiva Goswami in one of the Sandhavas, Priti Sandhava, he explains, he raises the question, in this whole pastime, who got the mercy, or the most mercy? The 4 Kumars, or Jaya Vijay? And the answer is, Jaya Vijay got the most mercy. Because the 4 Kumars were not as advanced as Jaya Vijay, the Lord flattered them. It was some of it was just flattery. It was not really true. He just flattered them all, like, you're so great. Anyone who does anything against you is just finished. But with Giant Vijay, he could see something was not quite right. And he wanted to correct them and help them to become better devotees. Yeah. And eventually they get the choice. 3 births as demons, or 7 births as devotees. They choose 3 as demons. And Jiva Goswami says, this indicates they have Salokya Mukti. That's their position. Because they're Vaikuntha devotees. They're not exactly Goloka Vrindavan devotees. So generally, Vaikuntha devotees, they have one of those types of liberation. So they have Salokya, because their idea is, we want to get back to the Lord as soon as possible. ASAP. And rather than, if they've taken 7 births as devotees, 3 births as demons means it's going to be really heavy. Really. Boy, what's going to happen to them? Phew. They're going to be destroyed 3 times. But 7 births as devotees means it's ecstatic. 7 ecstatic lifetimes. At the end they may say, well, look, we don't mind staying here longer if that's what the Lord wants. So all these things happen in this chapter 15. And there's a nice description of the Lord himself, nice description of the kingdom of God. In fact, the chapter is titled that, Description of the Kingdom of God. Right, so, yes, so we go then to chapter 16. Chapter 16. Which is titled, chapter 16, The 2 doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijay, cursed by the sages. So, yeah, the Lord describes the offenses of Jaya and Vijay, glorifies the devotees, but then he raises a very important point, that actually this whole situation was arranged by me. It's not just circumstantial, not like I'm here to just sort out some conflict between devotees that just happened. But actually, it was arranged by me. So then the Kumars go, and then the Lord reassures Jaya and Vijay and explains a little more why he's arranged it to happen like that. Because he wants to have a good fight. Yeah. And how can you fight with a devotee? What devotee is really going to fight with the Lord? Like really actually try and kill them? No devotee is going to do like that. And he may fight a little bit here and there, but after a little while he just, he won't bother taking it any further. So the Lord really wants to have a good fight. And that can only be given by someone who really is a demon, who really hates him and who really wants to kill him. But there's no demons who are powerful enough that they could give him anything like a good fight. Usually it's just a bit of a game for him. But he wants a real fight. So therefore these two were selected. Because first of all, in Vaikuntha they're Kshatriyas. They're warriors. Even by Vaikuntha standards, they're extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And when they take birth, I mean, there's some who they interpret the descriptions that they had spiritual bodies, as Ramyaksha Radhikeshwari. Prabhupada doesn't say that. But certainly, they were extremely powerful. Yes. And at the end, the Lord says, all glories to you, to Jaya and Vijay, which shows that, it's a really special situation. And it's going on under his supervision. It's 25 seconds after 9. What should we do? Go a little further. So chapter 17, victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions. So Hiranyaksha, younger brother, he is super powerful, and of course the demigods are very disturbed. When they take birth, there were earthquakes, there was fire everywhere, inauspicious planets just appeared, along with comets, meteors, and thunderbolts. Winds blew, which were like very horrible to feel, hissing again and again, uprooting gigantic trees. They had storms for their armies, and the sun and the moon couldn't be seen. Lightning sometimes flashed as though laughing. Anyway, it goes on. There's all sorts of, there's a whole series of verses here. How inauspicious, like the omens were. These are all omens. There's a whole science of Vedic science of omens. If there's thunder with no clouds, it's a bad omen. Something's going to happen. Something not nice is going to happen. If inauspicious animals pass you on your right side, these inauspicious things are going to happen. So anyway, that's a whole subject in itself. You can read about that in, I think it's the 14th chapter of the first canto, when Arjuna has just returned to Hastinapur after being with Krishna, and then at that time Krishna left this world while he was there. And in those days they didn't have WhatsApp or Telegram. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't even have telegrams. So, Arjuna, it took some weeks to come back by horse, by chariot. When he got back, Yudhisthira didn't know that Krishna's left this world. But Yudhisthira explains to Arjuna, something really terrible has happened, I know, but I don't know what it is. And he explains all these omens he's been seeing. Yeah, very interesting. And then at the end, Yudhisthira says, these omens are so bad, I just can't imagine what they could signify, which has happened, other than the Supreme Lord has left this world. And Arjuna says, well, yeah, that's what's happened. So then there's chapter 16 and Hiranyakashipu. I once, when we were doing Sankirtan in South Africa, I met a South African soldier from the army. He was like a fairly medium-high officer. And I asked him, why are you in the army? I would never join the army. And he said, no. He said, I like fighting. He didn't tell me how many people he killed, but he's the sort of person who would keep a score of how many he killed. So Hiranyakashipu was like that. He just wanted to fight. Who's going to give me a good fight? I want, the best fighter. So what he did, he approached Varuna, the Lord of the Waters, who's, he's a demigod, so he's a powerful person. Actually, Lord Indra and the other demigods were hiding. Yeah. They're not so brave. Yeah. But Varuna was not hiding. So what Hiranyakashipu did, he went into the sea and started fighting with the waves. Because he couldn't find anyone who could give him a good fight. So he started bashing the waves in the ocean. Yeah. So, yes. He moved about in the ocean for many, many years, until finally he reached the capital of Varuna, Vibhavari. So then he challenged. Well, actually, Hiranyakashipu fell at the feet of Varuna, and to make fun of him, said with a smile, "Please give me battle, O Supreme Lord." Of course, he's not the Supreme Lord, but he's a big man. Yeah, and he glorifies him. You're the guardian of an entire sphere and a ruler of great fame. Yes. So, Varuna replied, "I'm too old. Yeah, I've retired from fighting. And you're so powerful. You're such a wonderful, wonderful warrior." Glorified, flattering him. You need to fight with Vishnu. He is the only one who can give you a decent fight. Everybody else should knock them out just by, flicking them or something. You go fight with Vishnu. And Varuna says, on reaching it, you'll be rid of your pride at once, and will lie down on the field of battle. Lie down for eternal sleep. It's a nice way of saying you'll be killed, surrounded by dogs. Yeah. And it's in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you, and to show his grace to the virtuous, that he assumes his various incarnations like varaha. So maybe Varuna knows what's going to be happening. So, okay, devotees, we go on to chapter 18, the battle between Lord Boar and Hiranyaksha. So Hiranyaksha goes he finds Lord Varaha. He finds Lord Varaha and challenges. He actually asked Narada, where can I find the Supreme Lord? And Narada sent him to where Varaha was. And Hiranyaksha tries to chastise the Lord and insult the Lord. Yeah. But the Lord is not affected. So, you've killed some demons by remaining invisible. O fool, he's speaking to Varaha. Your power is only mystic. So today I shall enliven my kinsman by killing him. I'll smash your skull with my club. So the Lord was cool. He didn't get disturbed. The Lord at this point has the earth on his tusks. Yeah. So what the Lord does now, he puts it down on the water, not in the water, but on the water, and starts fighting, or starts, first of all, insulting him a bit. Yes. So, okay, then the fight happens, and Varaha, Hiranyaksha, hissing indignantly, all his senses shaken by wrath meaning great anger. So the demon quickly sprang upon the Lord and dealt him a blow with his powerful mace. But the Lord dodged the blow. So then Hiranyaksha actually